there?
I will put.
Okay, cool.
I'll put it in my book.
Oh, okay. You ready? In the bucket?
Today's the day I tackle the floor of the yard. It's just a task I've been procrastinating on. The plan is to spend some time figuring out the most efficient way of doing the cuts, and then once I figure that out, I think it's gonna go quite quickly because yeah. One thing I've noticed and that I've been thinking about is that all the advice online and from people for putting this sort of floor, obviously it's for rectangular rooms. So a lot of advice to how to make the room become longer or seem longer with the disposition of the tiles is like, that doesn't apply to a circular room. Like, I don't want to make a circular room look longer.
The first few rows were spent figuring out the technique for measuring and cutting the boards and fitting them all together. Each row had to be laid out first to make sure that the joins were optimally offset from the joins of the previous row, and also to make sure there was a reasonable amount of board at either end and not just a tiny sliver to work with. Overall though, once Mauro found his stride, it was easier than we had been expecting.
Here we have, this is sort of half a day of work, including figuring out how to do cuts properly. I have a system now which fairly straight and clean cuts. Obviously, like, the problem is that these adapters to convert the circular shape into straight shape, obviously, like, the unions of them change the angle, and sometimes the tile lands, like, the change of angle lands in between. So it's not perfect, but obviously, like, this is going to be covered by something, by some sort of trim. I reckon I have maybe 2 more days of work.
That afternoon, Mauro continued working. One thing we were worried about at this point was whether we would actually have enough flooring to complete the job. We had bought 40 square metres for a 29 square metre space, which is well over the 10 to 15% extra recommended to account for cuts and wastage, but those recommendations are for square rooms, not for circular ones, so we weren't quite sure how it was going to work out. As we got closer towards the middle though, we could see it was going to be fine and we would have plenty spare. As more of the floor went down, we began to get a feel for how the room would look when it was finished, and it was going to look great. I've got a couple of areas of the garden that I need to sort out today. Firstly, this bed. There's not a lot growing in here. There's some radish, which I'm going to pull it all up it's starting to go to seed. So once it goes to seed, the bulbs get a little bit woody on the inside, so they're not so nice. A couple of leeks left in here, not much going on really, so I'm going to clear out this bed. And then this whole area needs a good weed, so we're going to do that. I found where all the snails like to hide under here. I'm going to collect them all up and take them to the ducks. In this bed I planted some corn. This variety is Maíz de la Cruz, a variety bred in Catalonia with an orangey yellow grain, usually eaten fresh or grilled. In other areas I'm also growing 2 other varieties this year, including a conventional sweet corn. Since corn can easily cross-pollinate on the wind, which can affect the quality of the kernels in the same year's crop, I have placed my corn patches as far apart as they can possibly be, and I'm also getting this variety in the ground about 4 weeks earlier than the sweet variety to try and avoid cross-pollination as much as possible. After clearing up all the scraggly produce I had pulled out of the beds, this is what I was left with. I lightly steamed the radish leaves and served with olive oil and salt. They were quite bitter, which happens when the plants have bolted, but leafy greens are such a good source of vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C and iron, that I wasn't going to let them go to waste. I'm also making an effort to plant more flowers this year because for some reason I didn't really have many flowers in the garden last year and I really missed them. And of course they are great for biodiversity and to attract beneficial insects. So here in the middle of this bed I'm planting a couple of cosmos plants that I grew from seed. And that was one more bed done and it was time to move on to the next one. In this bed I planted some cherry tomatoes I had been growing from seed. Instead of my usual straw mulch on these beds, I put some cane chipping mulch, which is an experiment I'm running this year, and I'm probably going to end up using this chipping on about half the beds so that I can see how it does compared to straw, and I will let you know. But right now the corn and the beans I've mulched with this stuff are looking amazing, and we have not had a spot of slug damage, which is unusual for me with tender young beans. So yeah, fingers crossed we will see how this goes and whether I want to convert the whole garden and begin to pull back on my dependency on straw, which of course is an external input which I could do without.
Good morning, it is day 2 of doing the floor. Oh, I got really good light here, like illuminated. It's going really well. I think I have a method now. I'm like rows are going quite quickly.
Whoa, nearly at the end. How's it going?
So well, I think I have like 1, 2, 3, and the last one.
Yeah, it looks great. We've got way more wood than we need as well.
With jobs like this, it's always a shame because it's like the first third you're learning,
Yeah.
and then you start feeling good at the middle, and by the end you're really good, and it's like it's almost
done.
a waste.
Yeah.
It's almost a waste to be like good at the end. It's like, I wish I could have done like a third, throw it away, and do it right the whole time. Because if you see the edges from the start to now, like now they're like almost perfect, I would say, and at the beginning they were a mess.
What's coming in the yard?
Coffee wants to come in the yard?
Yeah.
Very done. Have you explained to everyone your technique or?
So the first thing that I do is on a new row is to align the half of one tile with the union of 2, and then I check and I put all the tiles and go to the end to make sure that the cuts on the edges are not either too small or like just so that they're not weird. And also I check the offcuts that I have to see if there's a perfect one. So if, for example, if like I'm 10 centimeters away from using a perfect offcut, I move everything because I don't really care that this union and this union match. So that's the main thing. And then I use this little, when I measure the side, I use this little bit of wood to as the separation. So I make a parallel line and I cut the inside one, and that gives me like the perfect separation. Okay,
Wedge time.
So the instructions on the manufacturer's box say to use a wedge of 30 degrees to lift, because it's the angle at which like the tongue and the groove sort of meet easily. So what I do is the previous style, and I go in like this. Make sure it all meets perfectly, and then once it's in there, tap tap tap.
All right.
Tap tap tap. Take it out. Perfect. Can you put it in the next one?
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
How are you going to measure that one?
Oh, I have a technique actually. I developed a technique.
So would you say this whole process of tiling a circular room has been easier or harder than you expected?
Easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot easier. Yeah, once you know what you're doing, it's actually fairly straightforward.
So this is how the yurt is looking now, with the floor fully finished. We've set up most of the furniture in here. There's a few things left to do. The futon stashed away behind here because there's like a little piece broken, which we need to like order or 3D print a new piece, I'm not sure. So the futon cover is just on the floor. That's fine, it's still really comfy. Yeah, it looks amazing with the floor. We're so happy with it. It just really makes it feel like a room, like a tiny house now, which is so nice. So yeah, we've had a few friends stay in here lately. We had a couple of visits over the last couple of months. It's been so nice to be able to offer them this space, and everyone's been really comfortable here. The temperature at night is really nice right now. The temperature in the day is fine as well. So we had really nice visits. It's been a brilliant space. It's going to be really nice in the summer as well. I think we'll be sleeping out here because it really does cool down at night, which is what you want in the heat of the summer. In the daytime, we get a good through draft with the window and the door. And the dome, of course, which opens as well. So yeah, this is how everything has turned out in here. Oh, well done. Oh, that's enormous. Well done. So we have a lot of broad beans this year. Well, we always have a lot of broad beans, but this year I thought it would be nice to share them. So I have organised a party, a broad bean party. A broad bean party. So we're going to cook a bunch of stuff with broad beans. I've got a curry, falafels. I'll show you. I'll show you what we're cooking. Wow, look how long that one is. Wow. Want to pull this, do you want to find a big one? Oh, well done, put it in the basket. This way, well done, up here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to make is a broad bean and preserved lemon curry. I don't have a recipe for this, so I'm just going to kind of make it up with what we've got. We've got maybe 2 cups of broad beans here. I've got an onion. Well, I've actually got 2. I chopped one up already from the garden. We've got some celery and some leeks from the garden. I think I'll put a couple of carrots in there as well. And then I'll just use whatever spices we have around. We have some garam masala, we have some standard normal curry powder, maybe some crushed chilies in there, a couple of cardamom pods, maybe some crushed coriander seed. This is from our garden last year. I need to use this up because I've got more coriander to harvest. Oh, and the preserved lemons. So I always have a jar of preserved lemons sitting on the counter because they are such a good way to use lemons. I have shared the recipe for these in the past. It's literally just lemons and salt, lots and lots of salt. But I'll put the recipe for these in a pinned comment or something like that. So yeah, I think I'll put maybe like 1.5 preserved lemons. They do have a lot of flavour and they do have a lot of salt. So definitely don't add any more salt into the recipe if you're going to use something like this. What I'm making now is broad bean falafels. There's nothing really special about my recipe. I'm just following any recipe that you can find online for normal chickpea falafels. And I'm just substituting the chickpeas for broad beans. This is like maybe 2 cups of broad beans and I've just blended it with the stick blender. I'm just frying up some finely chopped onion and we've got lots of fresh parsley from the garden as well. Got some chickpea flour that I ground the other day to help bind it all together. I've put 1 egg in here as well. You can add any other spices and flavourings that you want, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, once the onions are done and I add those in, I will just add as much chickpea flour as I need to bind it all together into like patties that I can then fry in olive oil. By the way, I am going to at least double this amount. I've got more broad beans boiling here. This is just some that I had already boiled quickly the other day.
Okay, so the cooking situation from that point onwards got a little bit chaotic, but this is what everything ended up looking like. The party was a huge success and the broad beans, of course, were the stars of the show. We served the falafels in wraps with tzatziki and salad from the garden, and the curry also went down really well. We ended up making all of these dishes a few more times over the next couple of weeks as the broad beans continued to produce. I also made a broad bean hummus, which again is just like regular hummus except the chickpeas are swapped out for broad beans. And another favourite of ours is broad bean and mint soup, kind of like a variation on pea and mint soup. It's pretty nice, especially with a big dollop of yoghurt dropped in at the end. There is a link to all of these recipes available for free in the description and the pinned comments, so if you would like to see how I made these dishes, you can have a look. I'm sure they can be adapted to be even tastier and more unique, but hopefully it's a good enough starting point. And I would love to know your favourite broad bean recipes in the comments.
So one more bed that I really want to sort out in the garden is this one here. It's getting a little bit overtaken by artichokes. I don't know why I put them in here because they get massive. At one point I was thinking I would be turning this whole garden area into like a perennial orchard, so maybe that was what I was thinking, but that's not what ended up happening. So I think I'm going to take these out, and I think what I'm going to do is start making like a border of artichokes along one side of the garden. I just think they look really lovely as like structural border plants, and they should also serve the function as well as a bit of a fence. Don't really like having Una run across the garden because she's a bit clumsy. It's also a really good plant to pull off the leaves and give to the chickens. So I'm going to take some leaves off before I transplant them because it's always best to transplant with fewer leaves just to avoid like water loss. Luckily we've now got a few days of rain and cooler weather, so hopefully they'll survive the transplant. This one here is pretty small. I actually don't know which is a cardoon and which is artichokes. I need to double check that because I probably planted a mixture. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, they're all going to come out. And then we're going to liberate there's a little fig tree in here which has really been struggling to grow, I think because it's just swamped with everything else. So we're going to take these out. Also some wild oats growing there. Right, I think I need the bigger fork. Right, there's one. Look at that. Three. Here's the oats. I'm going to take these to the donkeys. So yeah, this looks like a little baby one that's kind of growing off the main one, so I'll just plant them both together. So these are the artichokes that we have planted right now. As you can see, they are huge attractors of black fly, absolutely covered in them, which I'm hoping means that they're drawing black fly away from other things in the garden. It looks pretty horrible, look at that. So yeah, these have grown absolutely enormous, making a really good barrier, and this is the area that I've been clearing, and I just want to carry on this kind of natural fence along here, underneath and around the grapes. Okay, so that's how the start of our artichoke border is looking. There's my future shed up there, which will form the corner of whatever kind of fencing I end up doing around the back of the garden. If the artichokes are dense enough, then maybe I won't even have to put any kind of wire fence along this side. And yeah, the job for another day is to mulch all around the bottom of the artichokes, put some compost down and then mulch on top, but I'll do that another day. I am extremely muddy right now, so I'm gonna go have a shower. I think that's it for this video, so thank you for watching and we'll see you next week. Not sure what I'm gonna do with these. Not really worth cooking, like 2.5, but